You think I like doing this by myself? I told you how excited I got when I found out you were next. I was excited to have a friend here to be with me while I worked, but no! You've got to be inconsiderate. You know, I thought you were tough. I thought you could handle anything. I've had foals stand up better than you. Do I really have to baby you, huh? Is that how you want me to remember you? As a baby? As Pinky stopped to catch her breath, Dash blinked and sobbed softly. Her back was in agony. Her sides were on her fire. There was an intense pain in one of her legs. As she blinked again, she saw Pinky pop something red into her mouth and began to chew. Noticing Dash's stare, Pinky quickly gulped the morsel down. What? Pinky asked. Oh, this? She held up another piece. Well, while you were asleep, I got a little impatient. I helped myself to a small sample. Got it from your leg. It's not too bad. Want to try some? Without waiting for a response, Pinky shoved a strip of meat down into the revolted Pegasus's mouth. Dash gagged and immediately spat it out. Pinky frowned and picked up the chunk of flesh. If you don't want it, you could have said no. Pinky contemplated the discard snotty morsel and gulped it up. It's not like you haven't had my cupcakes before. Swallowing, Pinky turned her attention to a small can on the tray. She removed the lid, revealing that it was filled with red-hot coals. Lying on top of the coals were several large nails. As the adrenaline filled her veins, Dash began to panic again. Picking up the can, Pinky walked over to Dash's left, holding some tongs in her mouth. Pinky carefully picked up a nail and positioned it. It seemed between her victim's front leg and hoof. She grabbed a hammer and took careful aim. Now, no, Pinky! Dash screamed. No, no! And the hammer came down, and the nail punctured Dash's skin. The white-hot burning was too much. Dash screamed as she pulled and thrashed at the braces, causing her raw skin to rub and tear. Pinky tried to line up another nail, but couldn't find her aim, and let out a frustrated grunt. When Pinky brought the hammer back and took a wild swing, Dashes burst out crying and begging, "Please stop! Please stop!" Pinky rolled her eyes, putting down the hammer and tongs. She walked back in front of her friend and stared pessimingly at the broken Pegasus. Gilda didn't even cry this much when she had a live Paris sprite stuffed down her throat. Pinky thought for a moment about what to do next, and then had a sudden spark of inspiration. Rotating a wheel on a rack, Pinky laid Dash on her back and then moved Dash's hind leg, bringing the can with her. Picking up her tools, Pinky drove a searing hot spike of metal directly into the bottom of Rainbow Dash's hoof. As Dash yelled in pain, Pinky moved around and drove a second nail into the other hoof. Next, Pinky went back to her cart and located an enormous battery and controller, which she dragged over to where she was working. She tied copper wires between the terminals and the nails driven into Rainbow Dash's hooves and gave Dash a wink and flipped the switch. Electricity rocketed through Rainbow Dash's body. The blue pony reacted immediately. Her body seized, her muscles snapped taut. Dash's hips thrust skyward, her eyes rolled back, and she let out a deep, throat-shredding cry. Pinky giggled and danced in place, then reached down and turned up the juice. Dash convulsively, uncontrollably, and her bladder emptied once more. After about 5 minutes, Pinky shut off the power. Wisps of steam rose from the singed fur around the Dash's hooves, and the area reeked of cooked flesh and burnt enamel. Pinky rotated Dash's upright again, and tried to snap the drooling, delirious pony back to attention. Dash! Dash! Rainbow Dash! Wake up! Dash moaned and managed to give a modicum of weak acknowledgement. Pinky studied her handiwork. They reached into her medicine bag and produced a large syringe. Alright, time for last round. Dash focused blearily on the needle, which Pinky took as a question as to what it was. This is a little something to take the pain away, Pinkie informed Rainbow Dash. As she walked towards her victim's ruined back, Dash flinched as Pinkie jabbed the needle into the lower part of the blue pony's spine. Moving it in front of her friend again, Pinkie leaned forward and down and elaborated. In a few minutes, you won't be able to feel anything below your ribcage. Then you'll be able to stay awake and watch the harvest. Dash began to cry again. Pinkie, she choked out, "Yeah, I want to go home." "Yeah, I can see you wanting that," replied the party pony. "Sometimes I just want to give up. Just say I'm done with this mess. Go to bed. You know what? You can't shrug off your responsibilities. You've got to pull yourself up and meet the challenges head on. That's the only way you've got to get ahead in life." Dash hung her head and cried. Minutes passed as the drug took effect. Eventually, Dash was completely numb from her chest to her flanks. At this point, Pinkie approached with a scalpel. Glancing at Dash and smiling, Pinkie made a long horizontal cut along the Pegasus pony's pelvis, just above her crotch. Moving down Rainbow Dash's body, Pinkie made a smaller incision under her ribs. Finally, Pinkie made a long vertical cut down Rainbow Dash's stomach, connecting the first two. "Looks like I got my eye on you," Dash, Pinkie giggled. With a moist, gooey sound, the flaps of skin opened. The sight of her own organ and the lack of feeling caused Dash's breathing to intensify. Pinkie carefully sliced open Dash's abdominal sac and grabbed her large intestines. As she separated the organ from the rest of the digestive tract, she pulled it out of the new cavity. Pinkie grew jovial. Laughing as she gutted her friend, Pinkie began to cry and make jokes. Dash, growing weaker from this new source of blood loss, tried desperately to shut off the macabre comedy act. "Look at me, I'm Rarity," Pinkie, slinging the intestinal tube around her neck and spraying blood in all directions. "Isn't my new scoff so pretty?" Reaching back inside, she sliced a smaller intestine off the bow, squeezing out and expressed excitement. Pinkie filled the slimy organ through her teeth and dragged it back and forth. "Dentists say you gotta floss every day, Dash." Dash was barely awake and barely aware of what was going on anymore. The shock was causing her to fade. Disappointed, Pinkie dived back to the blue pony's guts, wrapping up her routine. "Aw, don't go yet, Dash," Pinkie started pulling out the rest of Dash's organs, pausing with each removal. "I know I can be a real precarious, but, I'm just kidding with you. You really got to learn how to liver it up. Boy, these jokes are getting bladder. Guess you gotta develop a stomach for them." Pinkie placed all the discarded body parts into a bucket, keeping the last one for a bit longer. "Ooh, bagpipes," she said, placing the end of Dash's esophagus in her mouth and the stomach in her armpit. She squeezed and a spurt of acid hit her tongue. "Ew. Oh, hey, there's your cupcake, Dash." Dash didn't hear her tormentor. He had slipped from consciousness minutes ago. Pinkie, not yet satisfied, hit Dash with another adrenaline shot. Dash woke up for the last time, her heart pounding. Warm blood flowed out of her, the wound in her chest in great spurts. It wouldn't be long now. Pinkie brought Dash around onto her back again and strabled the blue pony's chest. Scalpel to be ready. Rainbow Dash, I'm disappointed. I thought you would have lasted longer. I really wanted to spend more time with you before we got here. But I guess it's my fault. Should have taken it a little slower. Oh well. It's really nice knowing you, Dash. The blade sunk into the blue throat, and worked its way up Rainbow Dash's chin. Coming back down, Pinkie's scalpel circled Rainbow Dash's neck. The last thing Rainbow Dash felt was her skin being cut away from her skull, in the middle of the blade, scraping her teeth. Then she was gone. Pinkie stared into the mirror. She had done a really good job. Even keeping the eyelid, she winked. And Dash winked back. Pinky smiled. But still, she was sad that her friend was gone now. Dash only lasted 50 minutes. Not nearly as long as Pinky had wanted. She looked back at the cadaver hanging from the center of the room. The last of her friend's fluids draining into a pan. Yup, no more Rainbow Dash. As she looked, Pinky cocked her head and began to take notice of the fact that there really wasn't much damage to the corpse. In fact, the pink pony moosed. I think an idea exploded in her head. She was good at sewing. She had all the pieces. All that she had to do was put them back together. Yeah, she just had to get some stuffing, and bingo, she'd have Rainbow Dash forever. In fact, thought Pinky, that's what she'd do for all her best friends when their numbers came up. She was so excited. She skipped over the body with her Skinner to get started. The cupcakes could wait. Pinky had a friend to make.